Angel Nieves is a former NYPD detective and says...
The late photographer, journalist Ardina Seward. Nice to see you, Ardina.
Thanks for having me, John.
Hey there, everybody. You are watching Your Pet Detective, and welcome to another episode. I know we say that every week, but you are indeed welcome. We're happy to have you. All new subscribers, past subscribers, people who are just tuning in for this episode because they're curious. You are important to us, and this is why we do the show. Now, tonight, unless you are from another planet, you are aware that there is a war raging in the Middle East, and it is raging with ferocity, and for all that we see, it just may indeed get worse before it gets better. War is terrible, and even when wars are over, the casualties still remain. The casualties remain there in a physical presence, the casualties remain there in a mental presence. And for the soldiers who fight those wars, sometimes it is just an endless agony of having to relive that war and its trauma. But tonight we have a warrior on who was a former United States Air Force person who suffered his own trauma from the war. And as a result, he was healed by pets, specifically by dogs. His name is Ernesto Hernandez. He is in Virginia, and he has an organization called Wounded Paw Rescue. And Angel has some video that's going to tell you a little bit more about who Ernesto Hernandez is and what he does.
Guys, Channing Tatum here. So look, the issue is this. There are too many shelter dogs and there are absolutely too many wounded veterans. And for me, Wounded Paw is trying to get them together and trying to just help them save each other. So please just support it.
And there you have it, that video that was diligently done by Angel Nieves, who works hard on proper presentation every week, and our guest, Ernesto Hernandez. Ernesto, how long have you had this project?
Officially, it's a 501c3 since 2016, but I've been involved with animal welfare since I could walk, so for a very long time.
Tell us a little bit about your experience and why you founded this group.
As I mentioned, that I started this mentally and personally when I was very, very young, because I saw the direct correlation of animal abuse that directs to animal violence and mass shootings in schools. Unfortunately, I went to a very difficult situation in school, being a drug school. And so just always use animals as a gateway out, but I've also seen animal abuse that can lead to future items, such as I said, mass shootings earlier. Then, unfortunately, I was injured in March 26 of 2008. At the time, the military was strictly providing a lot of opioids. Then most of us turned to alcohol, and some of us tasted cold blue steel. But it wasn't to a dog that looked at me without any reservation, nor purposely evasion in the sense of looking at me with guilt that just saved me from myself.
And how long did it take you to respond to that dog? Because I think what you're saying is that you had a lot of factors that sort of drove you to the situation that you found yourself in. It was your upbringing, basically where you went to school. It was being in the military and then being prescribed opioids, which took you to a dark place. So when you do you remember the day that you actually saw the dog who brought you out of your misery?
It was almost immediately, but the thing is, you got to bring yourself out of misery first as a person. You have to recognize that you need help. I mean, she saw something in me. She's never had puppies. I think she treated me as a puppy, but she recognized the pain, the anguish, and the anger. And then, but once I recognized that she was there without any judgment, I think I recognized for the first time of myself that I needed help. And that's a very hard thing, especially for somebody with Latino background, to recognize that you need assistance. And then once I let her in, she just sheltered me as a puppy.
But what were the circumstances that brought you and the dog together?
For me, it was pain. It was very difficult for me to get out of bed. I had a lot of shrapnel on my back. It was just pain. And she recognized that, and she used a tug toy that I used to play with her before I was injured, and she assisted me get out of the bed. She helped me with mobility issues. If I dropped something like something as simple as car keys or a wallet, she would pick it up and help me with it.
But how did you and that dog end up in the same place? Was it in a hospital setting? Was the dog brought to you at home? How did that happen? How did you meet the dog?
Well, it was a family pet. My kids picked her out of shelter. I was deployed many years in the military, and I came back and I saw this dog named Daisy, and so I didn't bond with her because she wasn't my dog, but she was a shelter dog that was brought into the household, and she was just something I saw as a figurative there walking around. And it wasn't until, as I said, until I was injured. It was many years after I was injured, just the invisible wounds and the physical wounds started surfacing, that she recognized it. And I think she's the one that sought me out versus the other way around.
Is this Daisy here?
That is Daisy.
So she was so I think what you're saying is that she had already been with your household, and after you had been injured, she was extremely sensitive to those injuries. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. One little comment is Daisy. That was she was a lot less gray then. She's very gray now, just like I am. But yes, she just recognized. I mean, I think that's the amazing thing, that sometimes I think the evolution of humans is backwards. I think animals get it right, and I think she really understood. With no clinician, no doctor, no therapist, and no pharmacist can prescribe you as many drugs that they want to do, but she just recognized the pain that no one else could see it.
So basically, she was more attentive to you in your psychological recovery than she had been before, correct?
Well, yes, she wasn't my dog. Like I said, it was my kid's dog. Right. So it's just that she recognized pain, and then once she's noticed that, I started opening up to her. I mean, I would literally sometimes go take her away for the kids because she used to sleep with the boys, and I would just go grab her. But then eventually, she was still a puppy then, but so eventually on her own, she would come downstairs and check on me. She was really just seeing how I was doing.
And what was Daisy's history?
Daisy's probably one of the luckier dogs. He doesn't have a bad story as some of the other dogs we have. We have 10 dogs. Daisy came out of a shelter. The only thing we know is she had a bunch of brothers, siblings, but she was a shelter dog, and she was adopted pretty quickly when she was a young pup. So she, one of the lucky ones out of a shelter that comes with a great story. And so we have some other dogs that are just come from horrific stories, such as landfills, drug houses, abuse, bait dogs.
So after that, basically, she was instrumental in your healing, both physically and psychologically. But then when did you decide that what worked for you would also work for other vets?
Well, back then, 2008, I think that was the height of injuries coming back from the war. I mean, 2004, 2005, and 2008 is when we started really recognizing that this war was for real. I'm not saying that it wasn't for real, but it's for real, in wounds, both the physical and invisible wounds. And you started seeing a lot of service organizations that originally, we started out as that organization, but it got really crowded fast. And a lot of places wanted to breed dogs, because a lot of people think that a store-bought dog or a bred dog is going to have no ailments, no problems with it. And shelter dogs, no different than a kid like myself that came from the inner city, has problems, both mentally and just psychologically, as you're stating, that we recognize that shelter dogs have the same empirical data, no disposition differently than human beings. So we started really focusing on shelter dogs. But I will caveat, that's where we started out. We're now more focused on being a voice for the voiceless. But the answer to your question is, it's just shelter dogs are no different than a dog that is typically, if you see your golden retrievers or your Labradors, that's most likely when most people think of service dogs.
Is it fair to say that, I mean, and again, this is just speculation, that because shelter dogs have been in more trying circumstances and have had to make more adjustments than pampered dogs, that shelter dogs might even be more sensitive to human needs than a dog who's never been involved in adversity?
You know, I always joke that I speak dog, but as I would use an example as myself, you know, I think I bond with animals very well, and I always joke with people that I speak dog, but it's no different than myself. I mean, I came from an environment that's horrible. If you looked at teachers that supposedly my guidance counselor would have said I wouldn't amount to anything. I would have been on this earth more longer than the age of 22. But here I am, a guy who joined the military, enlisted to get out of a very bad situation, became an Air Force officer, graduated Service Academy. So I look at dog from a shelter, it's no different than myself or anybody has my background. There's plenty of us out there.
Do they, when the dogs that you access from the shelters come into your care, do they need any sort of special training before they can be transferred to a vet, or they just come ready to go?
No, not even close. But again, I just want to make sure for the show that that the service dog component, we do therapy dogs now for Fort Belvoir, and we're expanding out to different organizations here in the Northern Virginia area. But answer your question, the dogs that we get are normally can be put down. We take the very hard cases, dog fighters, bait dogs, dogs that have some serious problems. We had a dog from West Virginia that literally, she was neurotic. Nobody wanted her. She was going to be put down, and you just got to work with them. You decompress them, and so let's just say they don't become a service dog with an asterisk, meaning a therapy dog, comfort dog, or some emotional support animal, that they have a good fitting home to go to. You know, sometimes all you need is a great loving pet to calm you down.
That's forgive me, but that's a tall order, because now you've got a dog, and a dog that has suffered abuse. That dog has to be worked with, and once that dog has been worked with in rehab, then that dog will go to an individual who has also been impacted by trauma. That seems to be a pretty tall order.
It is a tall order, but if you look at the outcome as it happens, I mean, like I said, if you look at every empirical data for myself, I should have never been in the military. I should have been incarcerated or dead. So I used my background, no different than a dog, except I have a voice, as I'm speaking to you today, that these dogs just want to be loved. That's all I wanted to as a child. So now that I have the aptitude and ability to do that, just provide them the care and needs, and they're no different than us. You know?
How long does it take you from the time you get the dog from the shelter to the time that dog is assigned to someone? How long is that period before a dog is ready to be given away?
Again, they're no different than human beings. It's like how long would it be a person to be a doctor, a pilot, neurosurgeon? So I'll give you an example. Most of our dogs come from a hotline. They'll call us. There's a horrible situation. I'll use Elvis, which is our most recent dog. He's a pit bull mix. We have a lot of pitties, because they're discriminated against, unfortunately. He was in a situation of a drug house in Las Vegas. New neighbors moved in. They noticed this dog that was just abandoned in the Las Vegas heat. He was said, they called us. We worked with the local law enforcement officials, got him out of a bad situation, had him transported here during COVID. So we weren't able to pick him up ourselves. He was one of our easiest dogs. I think he integrated from a horrible situation in 2 to 4 months. You know what I'm saying? Little things we have to fix. The 2 months that he was able to work with other dogs, the 4 months, the potty training and walking in public, not pulling a leash. Then I've had another dogs that's taken up to a year. So every dog's no different than a human characteristics that we have. It just takes time and patience.
Have you ever had any dogs return to you because they just weren't compatible with the person who received them?
I'm very happy to say none, zero. I know, but I mean, we don't put out a lot of dogs either. So for us, I said we take the very hard cases, the dog fighters, the bait dogs, the dogs that normally you take them to a veterinarian, they're going to say, put them down. We're not going to accept them. This dog will not be integrated at all. We have another one by the name of Kane. It came out of a bad situation out of Washington, D.C. He was a fighter and a dog breeder. He was one of my more difficult. He was a biter. He bit me several times, and just worked with him. And now he's retired, completely retired, lives in a sanctuary with my son. So we've been fortunate. I said, I wish everybody had the same data points that I have. Like maybe I'm just lucky. And I keep on saying I just happen to speak dog.
So how does it work? Is it word of mouth? A soldier or a former soldier calls you and says, "Listen, I really would like to have one of your dogs." How is the liaison done?
Well, right now, like I said, we're moving more towards a therapy dog program. So there's a program called the Soldier Recovery Unit at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which we're trying to model throughout the states. Right now, we're starting out here in the DC area, so including Quantico and Walter Reed. So once we get that program a little more robust, what it is, so there's people like mine, like myself, that have therapy dogs. And we just work with the organization and say, hey, you know, if you want a dog, here's the process we walk through. But all our dogs will come out of a shelter or a rescue. They're not going to be bred or whatsoever or bought.
And you trained them yourself?
We have other trainers too. So I do decompression. That's what I think my passion and really strength is. We do have trainers. Some are civilians. We try to utilize military background trainers who were canine people in the past and have them train the dogs day to day. But we do, like I said, Fort Belvoir is probably our biggest source right now of dog training.
Right. And so how many hours a day are devoted to rehabbing a dog? Let's say one dog you're working with.
All day and night. I mean, it depends on the dog. I mean, most dogs that we get have never learned how to go to the bathroom correctly, especially in a household setting. They all live inside of a house. We consider our home a sanctuary. So it's just a 24-hour constant thing. I mean, granted, we all need our sleep and, we need our refreshments and stuff that goes with it. But, so dogs whining at 3:30 in the morning, most likely is letting you know he needs to go outside for something, maybe just to run around for a second. Every dog's unique, but it's a 24/7 kind of operation. But realistically, like I said, we know that there's times where there's going to be accidents, and part of your day is cleanups, like today.
I want to say one thing though, and I want to tell you. To me, you are a hero. Okay, I know. Don't say it. You're a hero to me. Military. You got a Purple Heart. Not everybody gets that. And also, what you're doing for the dogs now, and rehab and helping others with the dog, especially with the vets, because you're a vet yourself, and your speeches. I heard some of your speeches. Okay, you're very, very dedicated. Okay, but let me ask you one thing. You say you had a problem with your back. What happened in the military? If you could talk about it, that you end up with a Purple Heart. Something happened, right?
Well, you have to. Like I said the Purple Heart is most recognized for people that are no longer on this earth with us. It's always posthumously awarded. So on March 26, 2008, in Iraq, I finally had to live the creed and drink the Kool-Aid. We always gloat, and I respect every military service member that we always say so others may live. But we hardly ever tested in that creed. Just we always happen to have situations that doesn't need to happen that way. So on that morning at 5:30 in the morning, we had an alarm sound out that we had incoming rockets and mortars. And me and this soldier, I'm an airman, he was a soldier. We recognized the situation going on. We were grabbing bodies and throwing them to bunkers, pieces sometimes, if you understand what I'm saying. And we made our peace. And we said, hey, there's the openings were exposed, and we used our bodies to protect the others so others may live. Luckily, we both had quite a bit of damage to us, but we both survived, and we weren't medevaced out. We were treated in country and continued to serve. So the bottom line, what you're asking the question is, we use our bodies so others may live.
How many people work with you now? How large is your staff?
Oh, you're almost looking at them as me and my spouse. If it's some family members, we have some volunteers. I would say if day-to-day operation from people working, I'll say 4, but our reach is, it can be as much as depending to 20 to 30 people. No one's paid at this time. We are having to reevaluate some pay structure just to keep people on. Like I said, it's a 24/7 operation. But it's right now it's a dozen. How's that? I always joke and tell my spouse that we want to have a baker's dozen dogs. We have 10 dogs, so we got 3 more to go.
Wow, 10 dogs. That's a big project. And those dogs now, you have 10 dogs. Those dogs will eventually be sent out or assigned to.
No, those are ours.
Oh, so you have 10 dogs of your own.
Yeah. And then we have like a dog in Florida by the name of Ghost. A couple of us were working throughout the country. So these are our 10 dogs that have, they said this is a sanctuary. This is where they're going to forever live, and this is where they'll be interned. This is their place.
But why keep, most people wouldn't keep 10 dogs. Most people wouldn't keep 5 dogs. So you voluntarily you keep 10 dogs.
The reason we do it is for the stories behind them. 2 are stored bought. And you would think that, when you buy a store-bought dog that comes with no behavior issues or perfect, no different than if you went to an Ivy League school. There's going to be some issues with certain people. So we showcase sometimes these store-bought dogs are not perfect. The other ones we have taken to the halls of Congress. We've worked with the Speaker of the House for the last administration. Again, we're apolitical, so make sure that's clear on the show. That we showcase, and a lot of it's pit bulls. I said, I always say pitty mixes, but pit bulls, they have such a bad connotation, such a bad rap that they're just sweetheart dogs. We have been to the Rayburn building in DC. That's the main building there at the congressional side of the House side, excuse me, that we showcase a dog fighter. And, people are always like, oh my God, that's a huge dog. And they're curious, they're concerned. But guess what? They always come to us and pet this dog. And this dog is probably the most loving animal that you ever have had. Come from a horrible situation, but it's loving. So the reason we keep these dogs, it's not that we couldn't place them. It's just, I think they were a better fit for us to showcase certain different features for each one of them. And then, like I said, and they help us to bring the word out. So imagine when we pull up an RV with 7 dogs, we travel with 7 constantly. It's, when we come out, it's a showcase. So it brings a lot of attention to us. So it's a little bit of propaganda too.
Are these the dogs right here?
The one to the far left, that's Kane, the dog fighter. The black and white is Jasmine. That's Daisy in the center. The one sitting down is Rosie. And the one to the far right, that is Belle. She came out of New York City with a New York City Animal Control Center. She's probably one of my favorite of all of them. Now, when I say favorite, excuse me, I came out wrong. Favorite in the sense of what she did. She was animal aggressive. She was human aggressive. She lived in an apartment out of New York City. She was literally going to be put down. I was kept on attacking at New York City Animal Control Center. And they gave me an ultimatum. We pick the dog, you take it. And that was her. She was difficult, but she's now one of the sweetest dogs ever, but she's up there in age. So.
Where do you start when you are first presented with a dog like that, where the take-in agency says, okay, look, we can't deal with this dog anymore. If you don't take it, that's it. The dog's going to be put down. Where do you, they hand this dog off to you. The dog is aggressive and is biting. So what's the initial, what's in those first hours where you have that dog? What do you do with the dog?
There is no routine. There's no agenda. Just meet the dog and go from there. I've been bit many times. If you look closely, my nose almost been bit off by dogs. It's my passion. I mean, I can't give you a recipe that you're asking for. It's just you meet the dog, you figure out what their strengths are. That's the first thing. What their weaknesses is, because that's what's going to be my strength to figure out what that dog needs. We don't do food deprivation. We don't put them in kennels right away. We don't cage them. They have free roam, but we have a good handle how to work with them, especially with there's other dogs around that, there's unfortunately fur and bites and a little blood here and there, but in the end, they do a great job.
But the thing, most people who the human reaction, the initial human reaction when you get bitten by a dog is to recoil, and it raises something in your psyche that says that's a bad dog. And the human reaction is to be defensive. So what is it in your human reaction that causes you to shut off that defensive response and say, something, the dog just bit me. This is what I need to do to heal this dog. And it's like you have to sort of short circuit your own initial response, correct?
I would say yes and no at the same time. I would say it's no different than Angel. Why does he run to the bullets? Why did I use my body to protect the occupants of the bunker? Why did I run towards the sirens? I would share with you is this. The reason I joined the military, most people in education or to serve, I joined the military because I had a death threat against me. Because I put my life on line so someone else was about to be murdered. So I can answer why did I do that at the age of 17 or 16 at the time. I don't know why I saved his life. So, but the thing is, I think it's just a national instinct for a lot of people. Now that I'm retired, my calling is to serve these beautiful creatures called dogs. I mean, don't forget me, we love cats too, but dogs are just part of our nature.
You said something very interesting, because what it sounds like is that based on your own personal experience, that you understand a dog who is behaving badly. You understand a dog who's reacting in an apprehensive manner. You understand a dog who's biting, and that helps you to bond and train that dog. Is that correct?
Oh, very much so. I mean, you and I having this great conversation with Angel. It's just, but dogs bark or bite to communicate. So that bond is sometimes they're biting not to bite you, to hurt you. They're biting there to tell you something. If you look at the whole communication behind dogs and wolves, the mama normally bites a dog by the scruff of their neck, not because she's trying to hurt him, she's trying to correct the behavior issue. So.
Well, we're sort of winding down to that final few minutes.
Sure.
I want to ask, what we always do for the majority of people who come on the show, and the money's coming out of their own pockets, they're a 501c3, but it takes wood to burn a fire. So what can people do to help you out?
We're all competing against the same purse strings, and I'm going to say the very simple thing that I want to do is I'm not going to ask for money. I'm not going to put up a sign and say you can donate here. What I'm going to ask you is have your elected officials, your politicians, include animal welfare in part of their agenda. We're coming to a big election in 2024, both from national and down, include animal welfare in part of their agenda. So we are pushing very hard that the administration, R, D, or I, doesn't matter which, like I said, we're apolitical, it doesn't matter what part of the affiliation, that they include animal welfare, where there's councils on sports, physical fitness, nutrition, council on economics, council on economic development, but there's not a council on animal welfare. Every mass shooting that has happened in this country has started with someone knowing that a person abused an animal. Uvalde, Texas, I'm fond of Texas because I'm a native Texas. That person, that idiot, was decapitating cats, and the community knew about it, and no one reported it at all.
Yeah, people tend to. It's always amazing that people tend to normalize it, and after the fact, they'll say, "Oh yeah, he was a little rough on animals," but why didn't they recognize the red flag from the beginning? But Angel, you wanted to say something, I think.
Yeah, we spoke about this before, a couple of days ago. When I was in the police department back in the 80s, actually had in the beginning of the 90s, they would talk about domestic violence. New York City had like over 2,000 homicides in 1 year.
Yeah.
Over 2,000. And they say most of it was because of domestic violence. And they say we have to start from the root, but doesn't keep on going up and up to actually the person ends up dead. It escalates. It's a crime of passion. It's a split second. So they say, like, if a person is afraid of the life, harassment or whatever, take them in. Put the person through the system, let them cool off. But it doesn't happen, occur that aggression all the way to the top. So I understand that part of the roots. Now, what we were talking about before was it should be down more, which is animals. If you really want to start from the root, you have to start with the animals, because the animals are the ones that get abused first. The animals are the ones that be used as a tool, as a target for the kids who end up doing mass murder. They actually kill the animals. They actually torture the animals. They feel the death, and they keep on walking. Even gangs, what they do is they shoot at the animals and then they do is they dare somebody, rob somebody, or beat somebody up to be initiated into a gang. So animals are used for a lot of bad things. And if they have, like you say, it is election time coming. If we come out and we start from the root and help these animals, I really want domestic violence to be involved with animals also. If a person gets a dog from the shelter or buys a dog, the dog is not invited in, the dog is brought in. Now they use that animal for domestic violence. There's a pattern that they use the person's emotion, and this dog gets hurt or whatever used in a domestic violence issue, it should be treated like it's domestic violence, and the person get arrested and go through the system for an animal abuse in the family member. The dog becomes a family member, and that's not happening in New York City. What they do is get a violence, a VOP, which is a violation order protection, a piece of paper. You know what you can do with that piece of paper, right? I mean, you can make it out of Charmin. So that's the thing. So the thing is, use the animals as part of family. Be very strict, because after that will be a worse, which is mass murder, serial killer, and the whole 9 yards.
No, we agree 100%. My spouse, wife, has coined it that they say, hey, why should I worry about a stupid dog when I have to worry about sending my child to school? Well, that very reason is the reason you need to worry about it, because that same person is going to walk in a room and slaughter that kid. A child is slaughtering dogs or cats in the background. So our ask to you is report animal abuse, report animal abuse. If you see it, say something.
Perfectly said, Ernesto. And if you are a vet out there and in need of a dog, a therapy dog, or just a dog as a companion, there's your graphic, Wounded Paw Project, www.wpp.dog. You can contact them. You will speak with Ernesto and see if you can get your fur companion to help you out. And with that, Angel, you get the last word.
Well, yes, Ernesto, thank you. Thank you for being on our show. And I hope a lot of vets listen to this show, because I mean you're a good spokesman, and you really care. It comes from the heart. I could see that. I could see it. And and people, please, I'm just thinking of everything you were saying. I'm taking it all in. I'm sorry. But people, please spay and neuter your pets. And do you know where your pets are?